I'm Iris Freelander, and I welcome you to our show, Confident Living. Today, Dr. Mike Costello, who's normally here with me and is featured on this show, is not able to be here today. So I'm reviewing two wonderful books, and you're going to be very excited about these books. I'm more excited about these two books than any I've read for a long time, and I've read lots of books. One is Matthew, Tell Me About Heaven, and a lady that I happen to know wrote these two books, Suzanne Ward, and Matthew, Tell Me About Heaven is more of a personal nature, and it tells about events and activities in our lives that concern us more personally. And there's a second book, Revelations for a New Era, and Revelations for a New Era covers incidents and information of a more impersonal nature. Well, it's personal, but it's about everyone and would apply throughout the world. And it's more geographically expanded than Matthew, Tell Me About Heaven. Susie Ward and her husband, Bob Chapman, live in Washington State. They live in a very secluded area, a lovely home amidst lots of trees, and they have 6 dogs. I think now they have 7 dogs, and they live a more secluded lifestyle. So, and Suzanne Ward is a very modest, retiring lady, but strong and interested in everything about her. But unfortunately, when 21 years ago, in 1980, Susie's son Matthew was killed. excuse me, in an accident, a tractor accident on his father's spice farm in Panama, and Matthew died suddenly at that time of that accident, and it threw the family, as you would well know, it threw the family into a shock. And it took a long time for Susie to recover from that tragic loss and the shock of Matthew's sudden passing. And many of us have experienced that, and if we have, we know how that shock is never easy. But it took 14 years for Susie to calm her energies and be able to communicate with Matthew on the inner planes of being. And when she had seen him once, and she had talked with mediums about him, but after 14 years, she was so much asking God to let her communicate with Matthew, to hear something from him. So someone had told her to do automatic writing, so she took a pencil and piece of paper and tried to do automatic writing. Nothing happened, so she tried it every morning at a certain time for quite some time, several times, and then something was written out that wasn't of her vernacular. It wasn't the way she would express things, so she rejoiced that she was indeed contacting perhaps Matthew. Sure enough, she was, and very soon she graduated to using a computer instead of a pencil and paper. And Susie had had work experience working with books, the publishing of books, so she knew, actually it was a medical journal that she had had experience with publishing. And so she was quickly able to use a computer and bring information in from the inner planes of being, not only from Matthew, but from others on the inner planes. And these two books, to me, are landmark books. We've reached a time in our evolutionary journey where the veil between the third dimension in which we live and the fourth and fifth dimension is much more thin, and many people are able to contact those on the inner more easily, the angelic beings, those great ones on the inner, and the discarnate beings, meaning those who have lived on earth and died and are on the inner plane, died in their physical body, and then are still as viable or more viable than they were here on earth. there's so much information in those two books that it was hard for me to decide what to share with you today. But what I would like to share with you is that what happens on the inner planes of being when we die in our physical form is very similar to life here on earth. And we don't suddenly gain a lot of wonderful knowledge. We don't suddenly become seers and prophets on the inner planes. We might be more calm and peaceful and therefore be able to access more information. And according to Matthew, there are classes, concurrent classes constantly that one can attend, and most everyone chooses to. There are those souls that are so in shock, or they can't get themselves together on the inner, and it takes a while. They don't immediately go into classes and work on the inner, but everyone there does have their work to do, and they have training classes. And Matthew first studied medicine, and he was very interested in the medicine and music, and those were the two things that occupied most of his time and his interest. And then very soon he graduated to being what he calls an assister. He assists people who have just died and gone over into God's great country. And Matthew calls the area in which he lives Nirvana, N-I-R, Nirvana. We're all familiar with Nirvana. And so he has been there now 22 years, but most people, he says, stay about not more than 20 years, and then they go on to another level of existence on the inner or reincarnate. And it isn't usual that they would reincarnate that quickly. I believe it's said that when someone has gone out suddenly in an accident or suicide, when they've gone out very suddenly, they might come back more quickly. And when they come back more quickly, it means that it's harder for that one to adjust to life on earth, because we have 7 bodies: the physical, etheric, astral, mental, causal, Adonai, and monad. And when we drop our physical bodies, those other bodies stay intact, and we function from them on the inner. Very soon, when the physical body disintegrates, then the etheric body would disintegrate, and then the emotional or astral body we would drop that. But the 3 higher bodies we keep on the inner planes, and then when we reincarnate, those are brought back through into the next lifetime. And it's been said, not in those books, but it's been said that more than 3/4 of the world's population believes in reincarnation. And of course, the information Matthew gives us would verify that fact, the fact of reincarnation. Because as he says, when we go drop our physical body, we learn and grow and study just like we do here on earth. And then we come back into another family. And I'll use Matthew's family as the example because it is the example today, that his mother and father and his 3 siblings and he made a plan on the inner planes that they would reincarnate together in this lifetime in that formation. The parents and the 4 children would come through them because they had been together many other lifetimes, and this was a critical lifetime because this plan for Matthew and Suzanne to do the books was planned at that time. Well, it was probably planned long before that, with the help of those great ones on the inner. But they planned that they would be together in this lifetime, that Matthew would drop his physical body at age 17, and which he did. And he said that it was so much more difficult than he expected. When they made those plans, they were very well aware of what happens on the inner planes in life and birth and death and that cycle, that necessary cycle for our evolution. But at the time, they didn't realize how difficult it would be. It was so difficult that they were shrouded, the family left on earth were shrouded in a darkness, and it would be like not a mist, but almost as strong as a fabric. And their grief created that energy around them. And as he says, everything is energy and vibration. So the energy around his family left here on earth, because of their grief, was so intense that he was not able to reach them with even his thoughts. He wasn't able to reach them for ever so long. And that's what happens when those we love die and we grieve for them. And we've been taught in other books besides, and teachers in addition to these two wonderful books, that it's best if we can collect ourselves and go on with our lives, knowing that everything happens in its own good time, and everything happens for a reason. So as those that we love die, and I know from personal experience how difficult that is, because my only daughter died at age 3. So a lot of people, when we say to them, you must get over your grief, you must, which you don't do when someone is grieving, but it's a hard thing to accept that we can get over our grief. And it was hard for Susie to accept. And when Matthew came back finally and they were able to converse, and he said that their grief precluded his coming through that energy barrier, she says, well, Matthew, what did you expect us to do? To not grieve? And he says, I'm not saying you shouldn't have, Mother. I'm just saying that the fact that you did precluded my being able to come back as we had planned. And and the plan was that I would come back much sooner than this. Well, he had been coming and giving Susie messages for about probably 6 months, for quite some time, before he told her about this plan for writing the books. And she kept asking him, Matthew, why did you have to leave so suddenly and so young? And he kept telling her that there was work, a special work that she was to do, but he didn't make it quite clear that that was the reason he had to go quickly. So finally, she asked him point blank, tell me why you had to leave. So he said, well, that they were to write. And he was trying to encourage her to put the information that he was giving her into book form, and he was giving her the information that are in these 2 books. So finally, when he told her, she was very angry, and she says, what? My son died for a book? What? How could that be? I mean, there's no way she could understand why she would have to be deprived of her son so that a book could be written. But the books that they've written are so wonderful. They cover every aspect of life. They cover life here on earth, what happens before we come in, and what happens before we come in is exactly be similar to what happens when we're born and live through childhood and growing up years, and then the older years and so forth, except everything happens much more quickly on the inner. And on the inner, one may choose the age they liked best on earth, or the age they would most like to be, and they are that age. A thought does it. Whatever they think is there right away. And that's true for us here on earth more than we realize. When we want help from the inner, if we stay calm and take a few deep breaths and stay very calm and ask for what we want, then it's forthcoming. And so that happens on the inner, but it's much more speedily. It happens much more quickly. There are so many various things that I will tell you about these 2 wonderful books. We would like to offer you the opportunity to receive one of these free booklets to further your understanding of the new thought message of confident living. Each month we will feature a different booklet, which will be mailed to you free and postage paid. Simply address your request to Confident Living at
P.O. Box 7726, Long Beach, California, 90807.
As I review the index of these books, there is so much information. Each subject is a chapter, and some chapters might just be 1 or 2 pages. There's information about whatever we would question here on Earth and ask the veracity of any subject. I think almost everything is covered in the books, because they have tried, Matthew and Susie Ward have tried to show us what life is like on the inner planes of being. And we know that fear is the most prevalent emotion on Earth and the most detrimental. So they've tried to make life on the inner planes so clear to those of us here on Earth that we no longer fear death. And there is no need to fear death, because life goes on. And they talk about time on the inner, that it's this yesterday, today, and tomorrow are simultaneous. They're all the same. And so that's hard for our physical mind to grasp. I'm sure it's hard for you. It's hard for me too. But because everything happens simultaneously on the inner, when we were there, we're able to see everything more clearly. And that's the way one who is on the inner would seem to have more information than those of us still here on Earth, because they can see everything more clearly. But they go to work, and they have their chores to do, and they have places in which to live. Their thought creates whatever abode they wish to have. But there are certain unwritten laws on the inner, and one would be allowed to have a certain type of house, and different ones would help to build that house. We can build whatever we want or create whatever we want. For example, Matthew showed his mother his home, and he just has 2 rooms that are very lovely and decorated. He said he decorated his rooms with his own thought power, the way Susie used to decorate their home, with large branches of outdoor foliage and flowers, more foliage than flowers. And they don't need bathrooms, of course, and they don't need kitchens, but they do eat on the inner if they want to. It's whatever people want, that's what they get. And if they think they still need to eat food, then it's provided to them. It's provided for them. And they have a certain drink that they use, and many of them use that drink for sustenance. But they wouldn't need it. They wouldn't have to have it. But habits are hard to break, and so they think that they need to have it, and if they think they do, then it's provided to them. Whatever questions that are on Earth that's prevalent, for example, education is very important there. Music is very important there. It's the music was, if Matthew said, if music wasn't there, heaven would fall apart. And they have more stringed music there, and that's why he thinks that heaven is depicted with lots of harps, because of that type of music being more prevalent there. There is so much to say about life on the inner planes that however we want to look and the age we want to be, that's what we are. Whatever work we want to go into in our next lifetime, we get training on the inner for that specific work that we're going to do in our next incarnation. We come through in life waves with groups of people, so that we have the same not the same family over and over, but we will have been with the same ones over and over, of family, friends, and acquaintances. And very often, those to whom we're most close, we will be with more prevalently. We have a guardian angel, and that guardian angel is depicted with wings. The angelic beings are depicted with wings, but they don't have wings. It's the energy of the force of the energy that goes like that as it flows out in and out of their bodies that looks like wings. And probably the artists, particularly during the Renaissance, when they started showing the angels with wings, saw them in that way, and then depicted them in that way. And it's okay. They do have that energy force field around them, and that makes it look like wings. There are millions and millions and millions of angelic beings. There are angels for all the different types of needs that we would have here on earth. There's the archangels, which are the highest. Matthew said, I had asked Susie to ask Matthew about the angelic beings, and he said, tell Iris that I only know of 11 archangels, and who knows, but in any event, he he knows of 11, and then the angelic beings were created after the archangels, and there are so many types of angelic beings, and they all have their specific work to do. The angels of prayer do that work of taking the prayer energy. Everything is energy and vibration. Everything is energy and vibration. So that would be true of the prayer work that we do. Just a thought could be a prayer. The more energy we put into our prayers, the more fully they are used or usable for the purpose that we've designed it prayer for. And so know that that your thoughts are prayers. Your thoughts can be prayers. And when asked about churches, Matthew said God didn't design the churches. People did, mankind did, and the churches were designed to have the church be more prevalent in people's lives. And he didn't say it was good, bad, or indifferent. He just said it wasn't God's plan for the churches. That's mankind's plan. And Susie asked if he had seen Jesus, and he said yes. He comes there, and he and the Lord Buddha and others embody the Christ energy. And when the saints are advanced souls, obviously, and do very wonderful work, but they're not exactly depicted as the churches might make them seem to be, because the churches want to put another layer between God and humankind. And whenever that happens, then it's not as acceptable on the inner as if they didn't do that. So we are helped here on earth by our own personal guardian angel, or the watcher angel who works with a group if we haven't graduated to the level where we have a guardian angel. And then there are all the other different types of angelic beings who help us. And then there are discarnate beings who help us, and they are those who have lived on earth and no longer live in a physical body. But when we want help from any of those great ones, when we want help from them, just a thought will do it. And we pray to God in the name of the living Christ, but we pray to God. And as we pray to God, then that thought form goes out to the one who would be most able to help us from the inner planes. And we always get help whenever we ask. And Susie asked about her guardian angel, and I had always thought the guardian was feminine aspect of being, but no, her guardian's name is Gregory, and he said the most difficult time he had was once she was driving with 3 friends in an automobile, and they would have crashed and they all would have been killed, but he took their car over to the side of the road, and as he did that, it saved their lives. So our guardians work overtime helping us. So we can offer praise and thanksgiving to God, but we can also offer praise and thanksgiving for our guardian angel, and know that we each have one. There's a lot of talk today about homosexuality. He addressed that at Susie's questioning, and he said that's normal because we are eventually we're all androgynous, and on the inner, when a large group are together, there will be male and female, but also both in the angelic line of evolution and in the human line, and then there will be those who are androgynous. And if someone chooses to live that lifestyle, then it's perfectly it's a perfectly good idea if that's what they choose, because God gave mankind free will, and we should never go against the free will of another person, because that's their God-given right. Thank you for joining us, and I hope that you will I hope that you've enjoyed this presentation, and you can pull up Susie's website as it's been shown on the screen and get further information about her books, and I hope that you will do that. You'll be amply rewarded.
And Iris would like to extend a cordial invitation for you to join them this Sunday morning at 11 a.m. for our weekly celebration service at the beautiful Seaport Marina Hotel at the corner of Pacific Coast Highway and 2nd Street, adjacent to the Marina Pacifica and Marketplace shopping centers. There will be a guided meditation, prayers, spirited music, and a dynamic, life-changing new thought message. Please join us this Sunday. You will be warmly welcomed into the company of like-minded, positive, and uplifting people. And remember, whatever your dream, whatever your vision, you can attain it through confident living.